this video, I'm going to be covering the fundamentals of calisthenics, the strength exercises that you need to do regardless of your goals, whether that's general health, aesthetics, or maybe even the more advanced calisthenic skills. Whatever your goals are, you can't skip this step. You have to learn how to walk before you can run. At a high level, there are 4 main movements in calisthenics: vertical pushing, vertical pulling, horizontal pushing, and horizontal pulling. I'll also discuss core and abs, but they're not going to get as much focus in this video. One, most people train core because they think they need to do it for abs, which you don't. And legs isn't going to get as much focus because most people who train calisthenics aren't that serious about getting bigger legs. If you were, you wouldn't train calisthenics. It's just not the best way to get big legs. After that, I'll give you guys some ideas for programming your workouts, different training styles, some advice for building your own routines, as well as some beginner templates. So enough talking, let's get into it. A lot of people overthink their warm-ups. I've seen some people spend up to 30 minutes just warming up. If you like doing that, go for it. But if that seems like a lot and you're already struggling to find time to work out and 30 minutes of stretching seems like it's cutting into the very limited time you have to work out, don't do it. Here's what I do. I start with some light bodyweight stretches to loosen up. Shoulders are a big area to focus on with calisthenics, so I like to do shoulder dislocates using some sort of band or maybe even a stick. This isn't something you should be doing fast. Take your time, slowly loosen up your shoulders, and shorten your grip on the stick or on the resistance band after each set. Start with a very wide grip, and as you warm up, narrow the grip. If you're doing anything that's going to be stressful on your wrists, such as push-ups or handstands, then I would also recommend doing some sort of wrist stretches. Nothing fancy here, I just put my hands on the ground, lean forward slightly to put some weight on the joint, ease off, and repeat. I'll also externally rotate my hands so that my fingers are facing towards me and do the same thing. You can also clasp your hands together, do some sort of wrist rolls, or even put your hands together in like a prayer position and push them against each other. That one's really good if your wrists aren't super flexible or mobile. For my lower body, I like to do some Cossack squats. Helps to open up my hips, loosen up my hamstrings. They just feel good, and once I do them, my lower body feels ready to go. I also like to mix in some forward folds. The key here is to hinge at your hips, keep your back flat for as long as possible until it's roughly parallel to the ground, and then bend over and get as deep into that stretch as you can. Those are basically the only warm-ups or stretches that I do at the start of my workouts. After that, I pretty much go into easier variations of whatever exercises I plan to train in that training session. So if I'm doing really heavy push-ups or tuck planche push-ups, then I'll just start with bodyweight push-ups or incline push-ups. The key here is that you choose a variation that is insanely easy to do. You should be able to do a lot of reps without getting tired. The point is to get blood flowing into your body, get your body warmed up so that you're ready to do the harder variations later on in your workout. Moving on to the big 4, we have push-ups for our horizontal pushing movement. Unless you have a really specific and ambitious goal like bench pressing 400 pounds, there's really no reason you shouldn't be doing push-ups. There are endless ways of making push-ups harder, including push-up variations, as well as just adding additional weight to your body. Your hands should be roughly shoulder width apart with your entire body tight and rigid. Lower down with control until your elbows break 90 degrees and your chest is close or touching the ground before pushing back up. One thing to focus on here is when you're at the top of the movement, do not retract your shoulders so that your shoulder blades are touching each other. You want to protract your shoulder blades so that your back is pushing out. This is going to be especially important when you move on to more advanced calisthenic skills like the planche. And the nice thing about the push-up is that there are a lot of different variations. You can do knee push-ups or incline push-ups to make them easier. You can do decline push-ups to make them harder. There's also diamond push-ups, archer push-ups, pseudo planche push-ups, tuck planche push-ups, push-ups with a weighted vest. The point is, push-ups are amazing. There are a lot of ways to make them harder. So if you think you're too advanced for a push-up, you're probably wrong. For vertical pushing, we have the dip, which is typically done on parallel bars. Once again, your grip is going to be roughly shoulder width apart. You're going to lower down with control before pushing back up into the starting position. Similar to the push-up, there's one thing you want to focus on here at the top of the movement. You do not want your shoulders to come up by your ears. You want to push into the bar so that your shoulders are down. The dip is also a little bit more comfortable if you lean forward just slightly while you're doing the exercise. This will not only target your chest a little bit more, but it also makes it a little bit easier on your shoulders. To make dips easier, you could use bands, or you can also do dip negatives. Just like a dip, you lower down until your elbows are at roughly a 90-degree angle, but rather than pushing up, you just stop and repeat. And of course, you can always make the dip harder in the form of a weight belt or a weight vest. Another vertical pushing exercise is the pike push-up. This one is probably one of the more difficult exercises to do on this list because it just feels a little awkward. Even if you know how to do them, they still feel a little weird. But this is great for overhead pushing strength if you don't have weights around, or if you're not strong enough to do handstand push-ups. And fittingly enough, pike push-ups are also a great way to work your way towards a handstand push-up if you're not strong enough to do those yet, even with some wall assistance. You can do pike push-ups with your feet on the ground, which is the easiest way to do them, or you can do them with your feet elevated, which makes them a little bit harder. Of course, if you want to make them even harder, you can also add additional weight. A big cue here, and a common mistake a lot of people make, is that they let their elbows flare out. While you're doing this exercise, you want your elbows to point backwards rather than out towards the sides. For horizontal pulling, we have the bodyweight row, which is typically done on parallel bars or rings. Similar to a push-up, you're gonna start the row with protracted shoulders. You retract your shoulders, begin pulling towards the bar until your chest is near or touching the bar, and then you slowly lower down back into the starting position with protracted shoulders. You can make this exercise easier by tucking your feet in closer to you so that they're flat on the floor. And if you want to make this exercise harder, you can elevate your feet so you're in more of a decline position. Or once again, you can add weight with a weight belt or weight vest. For vertical pulling, we have the pull-up, which is the king of vertical pulling exercises. You're going to start with your hands roughly shoulder width apart, retract your shoulder blades, and pull yourself up to the bar before slowly lowering down back into the starting position. A good way to practice that shoulder retraction here is to do scapula shrugs. You just initiate the start of the movement, lower back down, initiate, lower back down, and repeat. You can make this exercise easier by doing banded pull-ups, or even pull-up negatives where you jump up to the bar, lower yourself down to the bottom position, and repeat. You can also build strength here if you're not strong enough to do pull-ups yet by doing isometric holds. Similar to negatives, you jump up to the top position, but rather than lowering down, you just hold that position for as long as you can. And of course, you can make pull-ups harder by changing your grip, doing narrow grip pull-ups, wide grip pull-ups, archer pull-ups, and of course, you can add weight with a weight vest or weighted belt. The chin-up is our other vertical pulling exercise. It's basically the same thing. You just switch your grip to where your palms are facing towards you. Some people think chin-ups and pull-ups are the same thing, but they are not. Chin-ups allow you to use more of your bicep, which is why many people, even if they're untrained, can do a few chin-ups, but can't do pull-ups. Pull-ups require more back strength, and without directly training that, you're probably not gonna have the back strength to do pull-ups. With the big four out of the way, it's time to move on to our core exercises. Now, I just want to be clear, core exercises are not going to get you a six-pack. Six-packs come down to dieting. If you want to know how to do that, I have videos specifically about dieting to get you your six-pack, but please do not follow all the bullshit videos on YouTube that promise you abs by doing their 5-minute, 20-minute, 30-minute ab workouts. That's not how it's done. If you want stronger core muscles, do core exercises. If you want a six-pack, get your diet right. But with that out of the way, here's the core exercises you should focus on. The first one is the L-sit, and you know the L-sit is effective and that it works because it sucks to do it. It feels like torture. But one of the things I really love about the L-sit is that it works your core and your hip flexors at the same time, which is a huge bonus in calisthenics, especially when you start to move on to more advanced handstand exercises or skills like the press handstand. Another core exercise worth doing is the hanging leg raise. This is typically done on parallel bars, rings, or even a pull-up bar. Keep your upper body tight, hinge at the hips, and bring your legs up as high as they'll go. This is another exercise you know is working well because they absolutely suck to do, and your core and your hip flexors will be on fire. If you're not quite ready for hanging leg raises, then I would recommend doing knee raises. It's the same thing, you just tuck your legs closer to your body. And a good transition here towards the leg raise is to do knee raises with L-sit extensions at the top of the motion, and then lower back down to the starting position. Finally, there's the pike leg lift. This is one you see more in gymnastics, not as much in calisthenics, and I don't know why. It's an amazing exercise. You should be doing them. They're great for your core, they're great for your hip flexors, they're going to hurt, but they're very effective. Core exercises are one of those things beginners give a lot of focus when they shouldn't give it a lot of focus. There's no need to dedicate an entire training day to core. Just mix in core exercises on your other training days. For the longest time when I was training calisthenics, I didn't even train abs. And as a matter of fact, in this picture, which was my best physique at the time, I really didn't train abs at all, and I still had abs. Despite what you see online, core exercises do not give you abs. If you want abs, you need to fix your diet. It's a damn shame too, because even some of the biggest names in calisthenics, like Chris Heria, promise you abs by doing his core routines. He's a liar, and it's a damn shame. And finally, we have our leg exercises. As I mentioned earlier, if you're really serious about getting big legs, then don't train calisthenics. It's just not the way to get big legs. You need more weight and more load over time to get bigger legs, and the calisthenics exercises just aren't going to get you there. And even if you do add load to some exercises like the pistol squat, it's just not the best use of your time. There are so many better ways to get bigger legs. Do squats, leg presses, basically go to a real gym and use weights. But that doesn't mean you should skip legs entirely, even if you're doing calisthenics. The most bang for your buck here would just be to do bodyweight squats. Start with your feet roughly shoulder width apart, lower down with a flat back until your thighs are parallel to the ground, or maybe even a bit past parallel, and then push back up into the starting position. You can make these easier by shortening your range of motion, doing something like a box squat, and you can make them harder by adding weights with something like a kettlebell or a weighted vest. Another great bodyweight leg exercise here is a walking lunge. Not only does it strengthen your legs, but it also helps develop balance and coordination. When you step forward, think about pushing into the ground with your front leading leg back into the standing position. This exercise is a little bit more specific, but you can also do calf raises to develop your calves. They're very easy to do, they're very simple, and you can do them everywhere. You just elevate yourself up on your toes, lower back down, and repeat. And if you really want to take your calf raises to the next level, get on an elevated surface like a step. When you're on a surface like this, your heel is no longer limited by the ground. This allows your calf to get below your toe as you get to the bottom portion of the movement, which stretches that calf even further, which is going to do wonders for calf development. From here, we can move on to your workouts by discussing the 3 big workout splits that will allow you to create your own workout programming by using the exercises we just discussed. The first split is the full body split, and it's exactly what it sounds like. Every workout, you're going to train your entire body using the movements and the exercises that we discussed earlier. This one's great for beginners and also for anybody that's limited on time. It's tempting for beginners to jump to more specialized splits, but you're just not ready for it yet. You're still new to training, your muscles can't handle that much volume, so instead, do a full body workout, have roughly 1 exercise per movement, and call it a day. Another split is the push-pull leg split. This is very common in calisthenics because you are able to train without any of your sessions having overlap. One session you're doing pushing, the other one pulling, and another one you're training legs. This also gives you a lot of time to recovery because there's so much time in between each training session. This also allows you to train your upper body hard in 2 separate sessions. So on your pushing day, you might be training pushing motions or pushing skill exercises like the planche, whereas on your pulling days, you're training pulling exercises or pulling skills like the front lever. Finally, we have the upper-lower split. It's pretty intuitive, just like the full body split. One day you're training upper body movements, the other day you're training lower body movements. The good thing here is your upper and lower days don't conflict, so when you're training, you don't have to worry about certain muscle groups not recovering enough. This type of programming also scales pretty well from 2 times a week all the way up to 6 times a week. A good rule of thumb here is that the more general the workout is, like a full body split, the better it is for beginners. Whereas the more specialized the workout split is, something like a push-pull leg split, the more suited it is for somebody in the intermediate or advanced stage. Another thing worth focusing on here with your programming is your training style. Are you going to be focused more on strength and power or hypertrophy, which is a fancy word for muscle size? When you're training for strength, you're going to be using a lower rep range, something like 1 to 5, but you're going to combine this with either added weight or a difficult progression that brings the intensity to your workout. In addition, you're also going to spend more time resting in between sets, somewhere between 3 to 5 minutes. If you're training for hypertrophy, you're going to be targeting a higher rep range, somewhere between 8 and 15 reps. You're going to combine this with an easier progression or less weight which allows you to get into that target rep range. If you're a beginner, you should train both. This isn't an either or decision. But as you get more advanced, a more targeted focus will be needed, so you're going to have to prioritize one over the other. That covers everything regarding training, but there are a few beginner goals that I would like to touch on to make sure that you get the most out of your calisthenics training. The first one is stay consistent. And there's a saying that I like to tell people, which is something is better than nothing. And I mean this literally. I gave you all the training splits along with some templates, but those are all meaningless if you can't stay consistent with your training. So don't beat yourself up over this if you don't even follow a training plan. I would much rather have somebody set a goal for 20 push-ups a day and just do that for a week than have the most optimized push-pull leg split that they can't even stick to for 2 or 3 days. So if you find the training splits a bit too overwhelming, just set a goal like 20 push-ups a day. Do that for a week. The next week, make it 25 or 30. Do that for another week. Then add in some squats. And before you know it, you've done this for like 2 months, and now you know, okay, I can do something consistently for 2 months. Now let's add a training plan and get serious about this. The second tip is to focus on progressive overload, and this is really just a fancy term in fitness that means get better. The way you're gonna prevent plateaus and the way you're going to prevent not seeing progress in the gym is to always focus on getting better in some way. Maybe that's a harder push-up progression. Maybe that's adding more reps. Maybe that's adding more sets. Maybe it's adding more weight to your dips. The point is that over time you need to be improving in some way to get better at calisthenics, to add more muscle mass, to get stronger. Otherwise, you're not gonna see progress. And this is why I highly recommend tracking your workouts so that you know what you did last week. And when you go to work out, you can say, okay, I did 10 push-ups. I'm gonna try and beat 10 push-ups this week. Another big thing to focus on is building up a foundation of strength before you move on to skills. I know it can be really tempting to jump straight to planches and front levers and handstand push-ups and all that stuff. But if you're not strong, you're not gonna be able to do the strength skills. You need strength in order to do them. You'll see some people trying to work on their tuck planche when they can't even do like 10 or 20 push-ups. Build the foundation first, and then once you have that foundation, you can move on to the strength skills. My recommendation here is pretty easy, 30, 20, 10, 30 push-ups, 20 dips, 10 pull-ups. If you can't do that easily with perfect form, continue working on your strength. And finally, record yourself. This is one a lot of people don't do, and it's not as big of a deal if you're training with other people. But if you're training solo, as I was, you need to film your workouts at least every once in a while. What you'll find is that when you watch yourself do something, you're not nearly as good as you think you are. There's a reason professional athletes film their practice, film their training, watch games that they've played in, because when you watch yourself, you notice stuff that you don't notice in the moment because you're too focused on doing the push-ups, doing the dips, holding the handstand. So film yourself. You'll notice weaknesses, you'll notice form errors, you'll notice you're not pushing yourself nearly as hard as you thought you were. You know, you thought you did 10 dips and that was max, but then you watch yourself do the 10 dips and you're like, I think he can do more. So film yourself, use your phone to your advantage. It's one of the greatest tools that we have. Don't be embarrassed by it. Just show up in the gym, film yourself, and if anybody asks you about it, just say, hey man, I'm trying to get better and I need to watch myself in order to get better. The people who have gotten really good will know why you're doing it. Calisthenics is an amazing way to train, and it is easily one of the greatest decisions I've ever made in my life. When I look back at old footage, I'm honestly surprised I stuck with it, especially when I look at some of my old skill work, like tuck planches and handstands. I don't know why I stuck with it, but I'm glad I did. Progress is slow, progress is going to take time, but that's one of those things you just need to accept and keep showing up. I've done everything I can in this video to provide you the tools that you need to know how to create a workout, know which exercises to do, and how to make progress so that you can eventually hit your physique goals, your strength goals, your skill goals, whatever they are. And even with all these training splits and everything that I've covered in this video, honestly, the most important thing that I can tell you and the most important advice that I can give you that I've learned over the years is to just keep showing up. It's so much more important to show up and do something than it is to get hyper obsessed over your training splits, over your rep ranges, all of that stuff. The most important thing is that you show up, you work hard, and you try to get better. If you can do that and you can stay consistent, I promise you will see results and it will be one of the best decisions you've ever made in your life. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know it's a lot of information. It was a lot of information to break down and cover for you guys, so I understand if it's a lot, but this should be one of those videos that you return to time and time again, and don't feel bad if you watch it through once and it feels like a lot. It is. If there's anything you didn't understand, please feel free to leave a comment below. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you have. And if you enjoyed the video, please just consider liking the video, dropping a comment, just letting me know that you found it valuable, and maybe even sharing it with a friend who also would like to start calisthenics. Stay consistent, and remember, something is better than nothing.